In the heart of the Mediterranean, there exists a special world where bears and eagles live free among the vestiges of a distant past. It is a veritable treasure trove of biodiversity that, from the Alps to the islands facing Africa, is home to riches of inestimable value. Thousands of species of plants and animals, including the continent's fiercest predators. This is Italy. Here, among the art and the history, a wild heart beats. From the rocks of Val Nerina in Umbria, the green heart of Italy, the Velino stream joins the Nera River. It does so spectacularly, with a fall of 165 meters. The Marmore Falls, one of the highest waterfalls in Europe, attracts visitors from all over the world. The waterfall is not only an evocative element of the Italian landscape, but also the location of an involuntarily man-made experiment in biological evolution, one that has now got out of control. The invasion of the River Tiber by the killer crayfish. Many biologists study this phenomenon. All fishermen are worried about it, but very few people know that the invasion of killer crayfish is completely changing the ecological balance of freshwater lakes and streams, and in particular is causing the demographic boom of fishing water birds which nest on the banks of the Tiber. Killer crayfish are alien creatures. They do not belong to the indigenous fauna of Italy and Europe. Birds do not care about that. They have just learnt the art of crayfishing to survive. The water of the Marmore Falls begins its journey in the Apennine Mountains, when the warmth of early spring melts the snow and feeds the Velino River. This is the habitat of the dipper. The water is freezing cold, but the dipper is very busy. It is looking for caddisflies, aquatic insects that live among the rocks on the riverbed and try to protect themselves inside a case of pebbles. But the dipper knows how to flush them out, and especially how to locate them, even without the help of a mask. It dives courageously, its dense, waterproof feathers keeping it warm and dry, even when the temperature reaches 0. This pair of dippers' nest is in a small, mossy cradle attached to a rock overhanging a small waterfall. It is a place safe from any terrestrial or airborne predator. Just upstream from the waterfall, the river water is used to fill large tanks where American trout and crayfish are grown for human consumption. They are continually supplied with cold, clean, oxygenated water, which then returns to flow freely along the riverbed. But now that water is not quite as clean, and above all, has some new inhabitants. A system of nets is supposed to prevent fish and crayfish from ending up in the water. It works most of the time, but not always. Some crayfish manage to escape and establish themselves in the river. Having flowed through Rieti, it flows across a vast plain, once full of lakes and marshes formed by its recurrent floods. The ancient Romans, always looking for land to conquer and exploit, came up with the idea of cutting through the mountain and sending the water of the Velino River below into the Tiber through its tributary, the Nera. The stuff of science fiction? Not at all. The ancient Romans often performed considerable feats of engineering, and this particular one was completed in 271 BC. 50 cubic meters of water tumbled in 3 cascades into the valley of the river Nera near Terni. The waters are home to some crayfish that have brilliantly handled the 165-metre plunge thanks to their protective shells. A little further down the falls, the Nera completes its mission to feed the Tiber. The Tiber is the 3rd longest river in Italy. It rises in the northern Apennines and flows for about 400 kilometres through Tuscany, Umbria and Lazio. The river flows slowly through a thick forest of willows, poplars and alders. And a thin strip of trees and shrubs along the banks, because the rest is cultivated fields. The environment has been much altered, crossed as it is by the highway, but it is no less rich in wildlife for that. Hunting has been banned for years, and the animals have understood this. The deer that usually take refuge in the dense woods of the hills descend into fields on the banks of the river as far as the hedges and trees growing on the shore. A dam stops the flow and gives rise to one of the largest artificial lakes in Italy, Lake Alviano. Unlike many other basins created for hydroelectric purposes, Lake Alviano is shallow, has gently sloping banks and is relatively wide, making it a mini Amazon in the heart of Italy. For the crayfish that survived the 165-metre plunge, this is paradise. The crayfish feel as if they have returned to the swamps of Louisiana and Florida, where their ancestors were caught before being imported into Europe half a century ago. In the muddy bottoms of the puddles, they can hide and look for food. It is a much more favourable environment than the rapid Velino River, where they had to fight against a swirling current. The fog gradually recedes over the expanse of waters and reeds. The birds seem to pierce the dense mantle with their calls. The ducks begin courting, showing off their beautiful plumage. The Garganets still have a long way to go, but in the meantime, the males fight for the favours of the females. These little ducks migrate all the way from West Africa as far as Mongolia and Siberia, and on their way they stop briefly in the Tiber Valley. They are in a hurry and don't want to waste a minute. If they can get married en route and arrive at their destination as a couple, why waste the opportunity? A pair of shelducks woo each other. They don't need to migrate, they will stay here to nest. They are elegant, but rather aggressive creatures. The males will not tolerate other ducks, even small Garganets. Among the herons, the first to nest are the grey herons. The snow has not yet melted on the Apennine Mountains, and there is still no sign of leaves on the trees. The colony is already established, and various couples are engaged in the early stages of reproduction. First, they have to occupy a good fork in a tree. Then, restore last year's nest or build a new one. The herons' nests are 10 meters up, impossible for a terrestrial predator to reach. The male reaches it via a long branch, but it is up to the female to arrange the nest. The couple greet each other formally. They are armed with sharp, powerful beaks, so it is always advisable to take the time for a reconciliation ceremony. Nearby, another female is hatching her eggs. She doesn't move, checking out what is happening around her. For over a month, she will be sitting on the eggs during the day, getting her companion to take her place occasionally. The couple is now beginning its reproductive adventure with a carefully balanced acrobatic mating among the branches. The forest is still bare, but at the top there are gems. Small moths swarm around the first leaves. These are green longhorn. The males with their very long antennae are looking for females. The black kites have returned to the shores of the lake. They have spent the winter in Africa, south of the Sahara, and crossed the desert and the sea to get here. They are light, with long, broad wings, and can glide effortlessly, brushing by each other as they mark out the borders of their nesting area in the woods overlooking the lake shore. Now the couple starts their courtship in the poplars. A storm of what look like soft snowflakes floats through the air. The poplar seeds drift lightly on the wind, thanks to their parachutes. The penduline tit has taken advantage of it to build its soft hanging nest, a small masterpiece made of poplar fluff. Other fishing birds appear in the heron colony. Cormorants have webbed feet and move rather awkwardly among the branches. Their landing must be measured so that they can get airborne as close as possible to the nest. Once, cormorants were seen only in the winter, but in the last few years pairs have started sharing the trees with the herons. Cormorants are hot. They disperse heat by vibrating the bare skin on their throats. Around their nest tree, sparrows are busily searching for a small room suitable for their housing needs. From the top of the trees falls a continuous rain of guano, a concentrate of natural chemical compounds that fertilises the water and the soil, encouraging an explosion of life that has its roots in the fertile silt on the ground. It is a thin, clay-like mud collected from the river and its tributaries in the hills along its course. Many of the small animals that thrive in these waters function as delicate filters, like freshwater mussels. Mayfly larvae use special appendages to direct a stream of water full of organic particles towards their mouths. The juvenile form of caddisflies live in a case made of pebbles, cemented together by the mucus secreted by these small creatures. With their soft and defenceless bodies, this is their only hope of remaining safe. These pools contain thousands of mosquito larvae, but few will become adult mosquitoes, because if there is one creature that is helpless and enjoyed by aquatic predators, it is the mosquito larva. If the larvae are disturbed, they move jerkily with serpentine movements and immediately push themselves downwards to reach deeper, safer water. At least, sometimes safer water. At the bottom of the pond is one of their deadliest enemies, lurking in their larval phase, the juvenile form, or nymph, of a dragonfly. A creature so well camouflaged it resembles organic debris. The dragonfly nymph moves very slowly and waits for its prey to come within striking distance of its buccal apparatus, which shoots forward like a net to capture and grip the victim, which has no chance to escape. Other predators operate on the surface. Very skilled at living where water and air meet are the boatmen, from the order Hemiptera, which also includes cicadas and green vegetable bugs. Like cicadas, they too have a buccal apparatus made to suck liquids, but in their case it is not the sap of the trees, but the vital fluids of a victim. Boatmen inject a cocktail of enzymes into the body of their prey, turning it into a milkshake ready to be sipped with a straw. The crayfish are literally swimming in a soup of potential food. Living or decomposing matter, of animal or vegetable origin, anything can satisfy their insatiable appetites. and armed with strong claws, killer crayfish can live as long as 10 or 12 years, much more than many other creatures with fewer defences. A group of egrets has found where the newts have come to reproduce and where the larvae of these amphibians begin to develop like small fish with legs. They always try to hide in the aquatic vegetation. They weigh just half a gram, but are so easy to catch that the little egrets make the effort. Many cannot escape the birds' acute eyes and sharp beaks. A real massacre. The little egrets keep their distances. Each specimen occupies and defends a small fishing or rather hunting ground. The denser aquatic vegetation helps the newts to hide, but the little egrets have found a way to flush them out. They move the plants and the mud with their feet, uncovering the last unlucky newts that have sought refuge on the riverbed. Of 1,000 tritons, perhaps 10 will survive, the minimum needed to ensure the continuation of the species in the year to come. The water lily flowers begin to come out. Each water lily leaf is a two-sided ecosystem. The top serves as a resting point for dragonflies. Underneath, encrusted with microscopic algae, the large round surface accommodates aquatic snails and flatworms. Flatworms are organisms of great biological and evolutionary interest for their ability to regenerate. Crested grebes have adopted their most elegant plumage, with tufts of feathers on their heads and a colourful collar that expands onto their cheeks. The couple renews its bond with the penguin dance, so called for the upright position taken by the two dancers. They approach each other and offer aquatic plants that will be used to build the nest. Then they ceremoniously shake their heads to show off their collars. The reeds protect the broods of waterfowl, keeping them safe from predators on the land. No fox can go deep into the water to reach the coot's raft or raid a brood of small hens. The masses of insect cocoons open up, aquatic in the larva state and aerial when adults. The buzz of millions of wings becomes as strong as the roar of a distant plane. Chironomids, tiny mosquito-like lake flies, although fortunately not bloodsuckers, swarm en masse at sunset. They form clouds where males and females meet to mate, a real boon for insectivorous birds that have synchronized their reproductive activities with this explosion of flying plankton. A pair of reed warblers builds a nest suspended among the reeds. They have arrived after a very long flight. They come from tropical Africa. Twilight does not slow the pace of activity of birds that have just a few weeks to breed this season. Fishing conditions are good even when the light decreases, because the fish approach the surface and do not notice the silhouette of a heron in the advancing darkness. Jackdaws, on the other hand, love light and so go to sleep on their safe perches. The water, carried by the river, fed by the snow that melts in the mountains, has submerged the base of the trees and created a maze. Herons have established their colony in its innermost, inaccessible heart. A few years ago, this forest was almost silent, and there was not even one couple with a nest. Today, there are thousands of them. Only those with webbed feet or long, stilt-like legs can move here. Many other species have joined the grey herons, and the city of birds is a lively place. The nests are distributed in apparently chaotic fashion, but in fact follow very precise rules to try to ensure a relatively peaceful coexistence. It's like a large condominium inhabited by quarrelsome tenants. The cormorants live on the upper floors, while the grey herons are right up in the attic. The spoonbills occupy the ground floor. They move awkwardly on the branches and prefer to stay low, where a fall would be less disastrous. Some youngsters have left the nest and are squabbling while waiting for their parents to arrive with dinner. Thanks to the many numbered rings on their legs, put there by ornithologists in various European colonies, it has been possible to reconstruct the journey that led them to settle on the banks of the Tiber. This specimen carries a Hungarian passport. Dozens of pairs of cattle egrets and small egrets fight for the possession of the best branches on which to breed. Each time they return to the nest with a crop full of food, the parents risk losing an eye or being badly injured. Such is the greed of the hungry chicks waiting for them in the treetops. Eating is a matter of life or death for the baby egrets and the growing little egrets, and siblings fight with no holds barred 20 metres up in the air. Some end up in the water, but here there are no piranhas or crocodiles. Gradually, the little heron can reach the shore and get dry. This is when they need the most food. Each chick consumes as much as an adult, if not more, and because each brood is composed on average of 3 chicks, the impact is multiplied. A hungry population has an impact on the resources offered by the waters, the reeds, the expanses of water lilies and Potamageddon. Tons of fish, invertebrates, frogs and other aquatic animals end up in the capacious stomachs of an army of fishermen. Each has a particular fishing technique, a restricted catch area and a specific prey. The egrets have found a school of small fish just below the embankment of the dam. They fight to get the best position. Some prefer to fish in solitude. There is too much confusion near the dam. This one has found a small frog among the leaves of the Potamogeton. In spite of their rather cumbersome beaks, spoonbills are very good at eating small and medium-sized fish. Some crayfish can end up amongst them. The squawko heron is solitary by nature. Approaching cautiously, it will only strike if it is sure not to fail. Pygmy cormorants fish in the shallow waters among the vegetation. They look underwater, searching for crayfish, their favourite prey, which hide very well in the mud and among the plants. Night herons go fishing at night and spend the daylight hours almost motionless on the branches of the tree or in the water. Cattle egrets are hunting for earthworms in a swampy meadow. Unlike larger herons, these show a marked preference for invertebrates, as do black-winged stilts, relatives of snipes. Thanks to their long legs, they can go into the high water to capture anything that moves between the aquatic plants. Black-winged stilts lay their eggs in a small pile of plants and mud directly on the ground. They are exposed to many risks, but they vigorously and loudly defend the airspace around their nests. Laterinos are small fish weighing a few grams, but 10 laterinos make almost 1 ounce, and 50 laterinos make the average daily ration of a cormorant. The cormorants fish in groups, pushing the shoals of the fish to the bottom, trapping them between the banks and the open water with their bodies. Solemn, on the top of a pole, an osprey consumes its prey. Now it cleans it calmly, hoping that no crow or seagull will bother it. Everyone, big and small, goes fishing. A kingfisher has timed its dive perfectly. Although tiny, this bird is perhaps the most skillful of fishermen. Out of 100 attempts, it misses no more than 10. Once inhabited by pike, perch, carp and eel, the Tiber and Lake Alviano were once the fishing grounds of families of fishermen who had the opportunity to catch fish of some value that were very popular in the city. Then, at the end of the last century, the ecological balance was destroyed because the river and the lake were invaded by exotic fish, true aliens, imported to meet the demands of fishermen without the slightest concern about what might happen. The indigenous species have disappeared thanks to the alien species, and because they are of no commercial interest, no one catches them anymore. In the lake, as well as native species like the increasingly rare eels swimming upstream, there are at least 10 species of exotic fish, ranging from American pumpkin seeds to Asian carp, which now represent the heart of the local fishing industry. Large koi carp, with their incongruous reddish-orange colouring, swim alongside American terrapins. American terrapins are now common. They are very good swimmers and emerge from the water only to sun themselves. Whoever once kept them in small tanks at home had no idea how big they could grow. A grey heron is peering through the reeds. It has spotted something interesting. It has caught a catfish, an American species. Another hit. The egret has caught a Crucian carp, a relative of the goldfish. This time, a Chinese species. A little grebe emerges with a mosquito fish in its beak, a small fish of North American origin. The alien fish have increased dramatically and have become the food of herons, cormorants and spoonbills. But the demographic boom of these birds is thanks mainly to the American crayfish, the ancestors of those that survived the plunge from the Marmore Falls. This family of grebes has specialised in hunting killer crayfish. This one is a bit too big, and the chicks have some problems eating it. The alien crustacean that has invaded the rivers and lakes of Europe has found something able to keep it at bay. The crayfish are the staple on the menu for each species. Even a lonely, sacred ibis has arrived from who knows where to eat crayfish. The killer crayfish have now turned into prey. They provide 90% of the food in this ecosystem, now modified by the presence of exotic species, fish, turtles, but also koipu. Even the vegetation is affected by the new tenants. Once there was a risk that the reeds would become too dense, but now there are those who diligently eat the reeds and the buds of any plant. Reeds are to koipu as bamboo is to pandas. A rich population of koipu is now firmly established on the shores of Lake Alviano. Koipu are American citizens with long-term residence permits. They are rodents vaguely similar to a large rat or beaver and come from South America. They would have been happy to stay there, but in the last century they were imported into Europe to provide fur. Some of the more fortunate have managed to escape and now hide on the banks of rivers and lakes, leading a clandestine existence. Now that koipu fur is no longer fashionable, they can set foot outside and devote themselves to their families and to their favourite activities without fear of being turned into a jacket. Koipu reproduce rapidly, and today there are millions across Europe. They are beginning to have an effect, destroying aquatic vegetation, eating crops, and digging deep burrows that undermine the banks of lakes and rivers. Strictly vegetarian, Koipu usually do not interfere with birds, but they are so stout that they could destroy nests just in passing. Females can give birth to litters of as many as 10 or 12 young, but usually they are smaller, and they treat them with great care and attention. Mother and child share moments of great tenderness. Who said rats, even giant ones, cannot be affectionate? A spontaneous experiment is taking place in the River Tiber, and in particular in the Lake Alviano. The lake is a globalized ecosystem, an anticipation of what could be the future of many environments around the world, which have been gradually conquered by a handful of adaptable and intrusive alien species that hunt indigenous species, but also cohabit with them, establishing a new and complex network of ecological links. A great evolutionary laboratory that tests, with mixed results, whether native and alien species from distant parts of the globe introduced deliberately or accidentally by men can coexist and integrate. In this great experiment of globalized biodiversity, although the actors have changed, the law is always the same: eat or be eaten. The only great unknown factor for these exotic organisms is their ability to adapt to the climate, which, although milder, exposes them to temperatures much lower than those to which they were accustomed in their native regions. Flocks of cormorants invade the lake, adding to the residents who are suddenly overwhelmed by northern migratory birds. A flock of cormorants operates as a closely knit team. They have decided to fish in a body of water. Who knows which individual made this decision, but it was done so decisively that others have followed, and the group has grown. They start from one end, moving as a unit towards the opposite bank. They dive and emerge with almost perfect synchronization. Their sharp, hooked beaks catch fish that cannot escape. Winter. In Lake Alviano, many of the herons, such as the night herons, the squarco herons, the purple herons, and most of the little egrets, have departed for warmer climes. On the other hand, the population of great egrets, stately hunters operating in the high waters but also sometimes on land, has increased tenfold. it has snowed, and the lake is covered in a thin slab of ice. There is not a sign of frogs or tortoises. The bittern chooses this season and the last hours of daylight to go fishing for crayfish. It searches carefully in every corner of the bank. The crayfish and other exotic species that have invaded the Tiber fear the cold. They come from tropical climates and have no experience of snow, let alone ice. So every year they face winter by hiding in the mud and in the earth. Yet they are destined to overcome this environmental challenge thanks to ongoing climate change. Winter temperatures are now milder. Cold and snowy winters are rare, and ice only lasts a few days. The descendants of the koipu and crayfish have been increasingly selected to withstand moderate waves of frost, and so you can be sure that the Tiber and its lake will look more and more like a tropical waterway, and killer crayfish and American turtles will no longer struggle to survive. We need to prepare for a future of cohabitation with the aliens. The river of the ancient Romans has taught us that a new coexistence is possible.